Welcome to our deep dive, everyone. Ready to explore the Gateway Arch?
Definitely. I think people will be surprised by what they learn.
I know I was when I first started digging into this stuff. It's not just a pretty arch, is it?
Not at all. There's so much history, so many twists and turns behind its creation. It almost didn't happen.
Seriously. I mean, I knew there was some challenges, but wow. Okay, so let's get into it. We've got some great sources here, stuff from the National Archives, some deep dives on Wikipedia, even some YouTube videos for a more personal perspective.
Yeah, we're going to cover it all. Where do we even begin with a story this big?
Well, I guess with the beginning, right? 1933, the Great Depression.
Right in the thick of it.
And this lawyer, Luther Eli Smith, pops up with this grand vision for a massive arch. Can you imagine?
It's kind of wild to think about it now.
People are struggling to put food on the table. And he's talking about this huge, expensive monument. Did anyone think he was out of touch?
Oh, absolutely there was pushback. But Smith was really passionate about what he called spiritual things, things that uplift the human spirit. He argued that even during hard times, symbols of hope and progress are vital.
Okay, I get that. It wasn't just about building something pretty. It was about something bigger.
Exactly. He wanted a monument to honor Thomas Jefferson's legacy, the Louisiana Purchase, the whole idea of westward expansion. So he formed this group to champion the idea, the Jefferson National Expansion Memorial Association, JNEMA for short.
JNEMA. Okay, so this group, they had to make it happen.
Yep, and they faced an uphill battle from the start, just getting the funding.
I bet. How much were we talking here?
Well, at the time, they estimate about $30 million.
Whoa, that's a lot of dough, especially during the Depression.
Exactly. They managed to get some money through a local bond issue and some support from those New Deal agencies like the Public Works Administration. But yeah, it was a constant struggle.
And I'm guessing not everyone was on board with spending that kind of cash at a time like that.
Oh, you're right. There was serious opposition. They had leaflet campaigns, slogans like public necessity or just plain pork. Pretty catchy, huh?
Yeah. Gets the point across.
Yeah.
So how did they deal with all this resistance?
It wasn't easy. They even had politicians against them, like this Representative John Cochran. He had a lot of influence, and everyone was worried about what he might do.
I can imagine. If a big name like that is against you, it could be a real problem. Did they ever think about just giving up?
There was definitely pressure to use the money for something else, like the Red Cross. Hard to argue with that during a crisis.
Yeah.
Smith even went to people like William Allen White, the famous editor, for advice.
So they had the vision, they had some money, they were weathering the storm of public opinion. What came next?
Well, there was this one big obstacle they hadn't quite dealt with. Railroad tracks.
The railroad tracks? What do you mean?
They were right there, blocking the view of the riverfront.
Oh, wow. So you'd have this grand monument to westward expansion, but you couldn't even see the river.
Yeah, and the National Park Service was pretty clear. No view, no funding. So years of back and forth trying to figure out what to do about those darn tracks. Remove them entirely, relocate them, even build tunnels.
Tunnels. It seems extreme.
There was this one guy, Baxter Brown, president of the St. Louis Board of Public Service. He had this whole tunnel proposal to hide the tracks. It got rejected initially, but guess what?
They built it.
Well, not exactly, but his idea sparked the solution they eventually used.
So the railroad problem got solved, but I bet that wasn't the last of their worries.
Not even close. Next up, they had to figure out what the arch would actually look like. And this is where things get really interesting. The design competition.
Okay, now we're talking. A design competition for the Gateway Arch. I thought that was a big deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Huge. They needed $250,000 just to organize it. In 1947, that was a fortune.
Wow.
And they even had trouble raising the funds. Luther Ely Smith, the guy who started it all, he had to put in $40,000 of his own money just to make it happen.
He was really committed to this thing, huh? So what were they looking for? What kind of design did they want?
Something truly unique. Something that would capture that spirit of westward expansion. Something that would become a symbol, not just for St. Louis, but for the whole country.
No pressure then.
They got over 170 designs from all over the world.
170. That's incredible.
They narrowed it down to 5 finalists. And this is where things get really funny. One of the finalists was this Finnish-American architect, Eero Saarinen.
Okay, I know that name. He designed some amazing stuff.
Right. But get this, the telegram announcing he was a finalist, it got sent to his father.
Wait, what? To the wrong person?
Yep. Eliel Saarinen, his dad, was a famous architect too, so you can imagine the confusion. But in the end, it was Arrow's design that stood out. It was unlike anything the jury had ever seen.
Oh, man. Now I really want to know what he came up with. But I guess we'll have to wait for part 2 to find out. Okay, so Eero Saarinen's design beat out all the others. But what were the other designs like? Did any of them come close?
Oh yeah, there were some really cool ideas in there. Like one had all these interconnected structures, almost like a mini city celebrating westward expansion. And another one was this massive pyramid with a viewing platform at the top.
A pyramid, huh? That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But Saarinen's design must have been something really special to win.
It was. It wasn't just a monument. It was more like a whole sculpted landscape. He imagined the arch as the centerpiece of this huge park, like a forest in the middle of the city.
So it wasn't just about the arch itself, it was about creating an entire experience.
Exactly. And the jury loved that. They called it profoundly evocative and truly monumental. I mean, high praise.
Okay, so what did this amazing design actually look like? Was it a typical arch shape, or did he go with something totally wild?
It was an arch, but not your typical one. He chose a catenary arch shape. It's super strong and stable. You know how a chain hangs between 2 points?
Yeah.
That's a catenary curve. And the arch uses that same principle to hold itself up.
Oh, I see. So it's like a giant upside-down chain?
Yeah.
It's kind of brilliant.
Right. Simple, but so effective. And it's not just functional. It created this elegant, soaring shape that seems to defy gravity. It's both beautiful and symbolic, right? Reaching for the sky, like the nation itself.
I love it. So Saarinen wins the competition. Everyone's excited. Time to start building, right? What happened next?
Construction began in 1959. And let me tell you, building something like this, with its unique shape and size, it was a huge challenge.
I bet. Were there any, big problems that stand out?
Oh, there were a bunch. But even before they started building, this actuarial firm predicted that 13 workers would die during the process. Can you imagine?
13 deaths. That's awful. But didn't you say earlier that no one actually died?
Yeah, you're right. Not a single life was lost during the construction.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, it's amazing, really. It really shows how careful they were with safety, always checking and adjusting their procedures. But it wasn't always smooth sailing, you know? All those safety checks led to lots of delays.
Well, yeah, they were building something that had never been built before. Everyone was watching them.
Totally. And then on top of that, they had these legal battles, labor disputes.
Like what?
Well, there was this lawsuit between the steel subcontractor, Pittsburgh Des Moines Steel, and the main contractor, McDonald Construction. They fought over extra costs.
Oh, man. So you have this crazy complex project going on, and then a legal battle erupts right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Did it cause big delays?
Yeah, it did. It really messed up the steel delivery schedule and pushed things back even further. And then, get this, the iron workers, the guys putting up those huge steel sections, well, they wanted to be absolutely sure everything was safe before they went up there. Understandably so.
They were literally risking their lives. Did their concerns cause more delays?
They did, unfortunately. And then, to make things even worse, they found some defects in the tram system.
Oh, right. Those little pods that take you to the top.
Exactly. They had to fix those, which meant more delays, more expenses. The Bi-State Development Agency, they were in charge of the trams. They estimated they were losing like $2,000 every day. The trams weren't running.
$2,000 a day. Ouch.
Yeah, it added up fast. And then there was this whole other issue, too. Remember I mentioned racial discrimination earlier?
Right. The AFL-CIO and the CIU.
Well, the AFL-CIO workers, mostly white, they walked off the job, refused to work with the black plumbers from the CIU.
That's awful. Did it have a big impact on the construction?
Yeah, another month-long work stoppage. They even had to get the National Labor Relations Board involved. It was a mess. Really highlighted the problems with inequality in construction back then.
So even a project as innovative and forward-thinking as the Arch couldn't escape the social issues of the time.
Sadly, no. But you know what's incredible? They kept going despite all of it. They really believed in the arch, and they were determined to finish it.
So they're battling all these obstacles. The arch is starting to take shape. What was the next big moment?
Well, as it got closer to completion, everyone was waiting for that topping out ceremony. You know, when they put the final piece in place, this was in October of '65, and the pressure was on, they had to finish it.
I bet. Was there a set date for the ceremony?
President Johnson and the mayor, Alfonso Cervantes, they set a date. But as it got closer, it was clear they weren't going to make it. They had to push it back, just hoping to buy the workers more time. But even that wasn't enough.
So time's running out, pressure's building, the whole world is watching. What did they do?
They couldn't delay it any longer. They had all these school kids coming to see it, 1,500 of them. Their signatures were going to be in a time capsule that would be welded into the keystone, that last piece.
Wow, a time capsule. That's so cool.
Right. It was about connecting the arch to the future. So October 28th, with the vice president watching from a helicopter, they start putting the keystone in place. And then... disaster.
What happened?
The gap at the top, it was too small. The heat from the sun, the thermal expansion had made the arch expand, and the keystone wouldn't fit.
Oh, no. So close. And then that happens. What did they do? Did they have a spare keystone?
Nope, they had to think fast. You know what they did? They got fire hoses.
Fire hoses?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yeah. They sprayed the south leg of the arch with water, hoping to cool it down, make it contract just enough for the keystone to fit.
Did it work?
It did. Just barely, though. They only had like 6 inches to spare.
Wow. Talk about a close call. So the arch was finally complete, topped out in truly dramatic fashion.
You got it. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, that's for sure. It was a huge moment, not just for the workers, but for the whole city. The arch was finally real.
So they did it. The arch is standing tall, all that work, all that drama, and it actually came together. But it's more than just a cool building, right? It's a symbol.
Exactly. And it's fascinating how people interpret it, how it means different things to different people.
So how do the people see it? It's about westward expansion, obviously, but is there more to it than that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, on one level, it's literally a gateway right to the west. Like, St. Louis was the starting point for so many journeys back then.
Which, is kind of funny because I remember reading about this whole debate about whether St. Louis really deserves that Gateway to the West title. Wasn't there that writer, Calvin Trillin, who joked about it being the exit from the East?
Huh. Yeah, he did. It's funny how those kinds of labels, those symbolic titles, they can spark these rivalries, these different perspectives on history.
It makes you think about who gets to tell the story, right?
Yeah.
Whose version of history we remember.
Exactly. And the arch, standing there in St. Louis, it becomes part of that conversation, whether it wants to or not.
It's not just geography. It's about how we understand the past. So beyond that gateway idea, what else does the arch represent?
Well, think about westward expansion. Progress, ambition, that pioneering spirit, pushing boundaries, exploring new places. The arch embodies all of that.
It's like a giant stainless steel symbol of American ambition.
Yeah, reaching for the sky. And to really dig into all that, you have the Museum of Westward Expansion right there at the base of the arch.
Right. I remember reading about that. It's all connected, isn't it? You don't just look at the arch. You learn about the history behind it.
Exactly. The museum adds that extra layer, those stories of the people who went west, the hardships they faced, the impact it had on the native people who were already there. It reminds us that westward expansion was complicated.
It wasn't just about heroic pioneers.
Right. It was about displacement, about conflict, about the consequences that we're still dealing with today.
It's like the arch itself. It's not just one thing. It's all these different ideas and emotions all wrapped up together. But I have to admit, even with all that complexity, the design itself, that catenary arch shape, it's just so cool. It's not just beautiful, it's incredibly strong, isn't it?
Saarinen knew what he was doing. He wanted a form as powerful as the ideas it represented. And the catenary arch, it distributes the weight so perfectly.
Like that chain analogy, right?
Exactly. It's so stable that it can actually sway a little in the wind, up to 46 centimeters.
Wow, that's a lot. I'd love to see that. And speaking of experiencing the arch, we got to talk about the tram ride to the top. Those little pods that take you up inside the legs. It's like something out of the future.
It really is. Designing that system, getting people up to the top within those narrow legs, making sure it was safe and smooth, that was a feat of engineering.
And those views from the top, I can't imagine. Looking out over the city, the river.
It gives you a whole new perspective. You really get a sense of the arch's scale, how it fits into the landscape.
It's amazing how the arch has become this icon, this symbol that represents so much, but it's not stuck in the past, is it? They've done so much to revitalize the area around it.
Yeah, like in the 2010s, they did this huge renovation project based on Saarinen's original vision, added an amphitheater, expanded the museum. They even built a park over the highway that used to cut off the arch from downtown.
I love that park.
Yeah.
It really makes the whole area feel so much more connected to the city.
It's amazing, right? And then in 2018, the whole thing officially became Gateway Arch National Park.
So it's a park, a museum, a symbol, an engineering marvel, a reminder of history. It's all these things at once. What a story.
It really is. It's a reminder that big ideas can actually happen, that people like Luther Ely Smith, with their vision and determination, can really make a difference, and that these national landmarks are not just tourist attractions, they're living stories, always evolving, always inviting us to engage with them.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap up our deep dive here, I have one last question for all of you listening. If you could design a monument for your city or town, what would it be? What stories would it tell? What would it represent? Give that some thought. And in the meantime, check out those YouTube videos we've linked for a virtual tour of the arch and that tram ride to the top.
Happy exploring, everyone!